You'll often hear someone say, I wish there was a manual to cope with adulthood and, of course, parenting. Well, someone has taken that idea and is running with it. Radio personality Thabo T-bose Mokwele has penned a book titled Pause. It's a collection of pearls of wisdom to tackle a vast, of course, array of matters that he himself has faced in life, to navigate life at least. He joins us now, of course, to just discuss Pause, as he has titled his book. A very good morning to you, Uncle T, as I love to call you as Uncle T, the best tea in the city. Thank you so much for joining us. Why
Thank
Pause?
you for having me, Marina.
Why did you feel the need to pen this book? Why did you feel the need to put down your lessons of adulthood, of parenting, of you know, dare I say it, fame?
Thank you for having me, and good morning and to you and the viewers as well. The main thing about this book was the book that you and I, Brenna, should have read before we could even adult, or before we could even think of adulting, purely because most of the lessons that we were taught were really taught by warning as opposed to lessons, as you know, growing up in a black household. Don't do this, don't do that, as opposed to, listen, this is the lesson and these are the repercussions. And I thought, let's maybe write these things down and have it penned so that we can pass it on, or in fact start a conversation between us, especially men, and pass it on to the next generation. And not only that, can it be a book that we can use to self-reflect, and then when you read something, self-correct, because sometimes we are also harsh on ourselves in terms of the lessons that we have learned along the way. We look at mistakes and we get hung up on that as opposed to seeing the lesson from the mistake. And I thought, let me then also put my examples in life, and as well as meeting other people. It is not only my lessons, but it's also learning from others. I've interviewed so many people who have taught me a lot. I have met so many people. I have read a couple of books that have also led me to this. I have also watched speeches, sermons, you name it, and you can't help but grab some nugget or two. And you're like, I wish many people could have learned this. And in this book, nothing is new. I even said it's a summary of what is out there, but let's put it in two covers, that it's a quick read. I wrote a book that I would love to read. It's a quick read, short chapters on the reflections, observations, learnings of life, which I hope you and I, as a current generation and the next generation, can read, which I hope a mother can give to a son who is yearning to hear a father's voice in terms of how the workings of the world are.
We have got the book, at least the picture of it, the picture of the front cover on it, and it says, are you making the right choices? That is such an important question, because you speak about self-reflection, Do we ask ourselves, Uncle T, are you making the right choices? Do we ask ourselves that question often enough?
If there's one thing we don't know or we haven't learned in this life at least, or maybe not even taught, some families do it, and I applaud them for doing it, is to have tough conversations with ourselves and with those around us. Because once you start having that, you'll realize that, hey, the whole thing about this journey called life is to experience it to its fullest. And yes, not all the time you'll make the right choices, but the wrong choice at some point leads to the right one. So every time when you ask that, because if you think about it, every moment in your life, you're at the T-junction of life. It's either you turn left or right. Sometimes you can't even make a U-turn. But what if the right turn was the wrong turn, So all of those things. Do we reflect? Do we pause and say, wait a minute, let me take stock. Let me celebrate the small wins. Can I just give myself, a break? I've been harsh on myself because, how as a people, there's so many things in terms of how we were raised that really drive us, to lead the life the way we lead it. Some are based on how you were raised. You're too harsh on yourself. Some are too laxed, and some are trying to strike a balance. So here's a book. Read it, so that it kind of gives you, a middle center of sorts, or even start having a conversation with, fellow brothers and fellow sisters about it.
Something you're incredibly passionate about is your parenthood. You are a father of 4 children. You've got one in the 20s. You've got 2 in their teens. You've got one who's 9 years old. There is page 57 here. I'm going to quote something that says, "Never fear to make mistakes. Be courageous enough not to repeat it." This is a quote coming from Debashish Mrida, and this is a chapter that says, "Do better than your father." You are incredibly passionate about parenthood, fatherhood. When I Mapaseka Mokwele as well is your guys' passion is to raise great humans. Talk to me about this chapter and why it is it's so passionate for you. And if, of course, you are wanting to get the book, it is page 57 of Pause.
Actually, we were blessed with 5. All the 4 that you mentioned, they have an elder brother. At matric, I was a father, and he's a 31-year-old grown man now. Yes, do better than your father is actually a benchmark, because our parents have given us the foundation to leap from. And I always say that if you haven't done better than your father, you have failed. And they are there as a foundation, and those foundations are not necessarily just strong. They also have a little bit of potholes, meaning those mistakes. So most of us are trying to fill those potholes, and in filling those potholes figuratively is to actually make sure that we don't repeat those mistakes, right? I normally say to my kids, I've made enough mistakes for you not to repeat, because if you repeat them, then it means I failed in teaching you the lesson. So do better than your father is actually a very beautiful way of saying, wait a minute, I have a benchmark. And by the way, imagine being Patrice's son, Patrice Motsipe's son. I mean, how do you do better than that man? Look, some will say, financially, there's no way. But wait a minute, he might be willing to say to his son, you know what, I wish I had more time to spend at home. And for the son, that becomes a benchmark. In everything that I do, I must make sure that I give time to my kids. I'm there, I'm present, I'm able to attend their soccer matches or whatever it is, the extramural activities that they're doing. And that for me is pick 1 or 2 things that you see that these are things that I can actually do better. Because that's the only way we break cycles, aren't we? By changing the narrative of the bad cycles or wrong cycles or little, blemishes on the tar road of life. And I think for me, that is such a beautiful thing to have, even for a daughter, to say, I'm going to do better than my dad, man.
Yeah.
Not because I don't appreciate him. No, I appreciate him because he has given me a foundation. But I want to aim higher to do it, to make myself proud, and also inevitably make him proud.
Uncle T, I've enjoyed reading this book. I'm not going to lie to you. I know Faith is going to want to take this book from me and read it herself, because she wants to understand what it is that goes on in the head of T-bose. But thank you so much for joining us and allowing us into your space, into your head, into your heart, to understand, of course, why we need to pause and ask ourselves, are we making the right decisions? Are we making the right choices, at least? That, of course, is radio personality Thabo T-bose Mokwele, of course, and now author, as he has penned this book that he now calls Pause. Are we making the right choice?